Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4 p.m. ET, and that means it is crime time here on A Mighty Blaze. I am Hank Phillippi Ryan, the USA Today bestselling author of 13 novels of suspense. The newest is Her Perfect Life, which just got nominated for the Agatha Award for Best Novel of the Year. So thank you, thank you, thank you for that. Today, we have the absolute delight and joy of talking to the fabulous Brendan Slocumb, whose brand new book, whose debut novel, The Violin Conspiracy, is just all the buzz. Everyone is talking about it, and rightly so. It is brilliant, and it is riveting, and it is heartbreaking, and it's actually transformative. And we want to talk to him about that in a second. The book's back cover says, a riveting page turner about a rising star in classical music and his desperate attempts to recover a priceless violin on the eve of the most prestigious musical competition in the world. And that's true, you all. That's what the Violin Conspiracy is about. But it's about a lot more than that. The book list starred review says, and I will read it to you, a galvanizing blend of thriller, coming of age drama, and a probing portrait of racism. And yeah, that is completely true too. But again, it is so much more than that. The Violin Conspiracy, I have to tell you, Brendan, that I neglected stuff that I was supposed to be doing because I honestly couldn't put it down. And one day, and if you know me, you'll know this is crazy. I actually not only stayed up late, but woke up early because I missed the book. So congratulations. You're in Dallas right now, right? Your life must be a whirlwind.
First, thank you so much for those kind words, and congratulations for Her Perfect Life. Hey, I'm rooting for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And I am in Dallas, and life is amazing. This has been the best ride. This is incredible. The whole thing from start to finish, it's amazing.
And tonight, what are you doing?
Oh, tonight I am at the Dallas Museum of Art. I am doing a Q&A with Terry Loftus. I'm also doing a violin performance, and I'm signing a bunch of books. I'm so happy that my friends and family could come down. My sister flew down from Denver. One of my best friends from when I used to teach high school together, he's coming up from Houston, and I'm really, really excited.
So you're playing at the Dallas Museum of Art and you're signing your debut novel. That's kind of good.
I think it's great. It's amazing. Do you see the smile? This is great.
I do see the smile. I do see the smile. What are you playing tonight? What's on the program?
I'm doing just a brief movement of a Zeitz concerto. It's a third movement of it's a little bit flashy. Being on the road a lot, I like to think that I practiced just enough to be able to make it work. So, we'll see how that goes.
Living on the edge. Absolutely living on the edge. If you have not been on Crime Time before, I want to welcome you all today. We are talking today about The Violin Conspiracy, the debut thriller by Brendan Slocumb. If you're not familiar with A Mighty Blaze, let me tell you that A Mighty Blaze was started at the beginning of the pandemic, almost 2 years ago now, by the fabulous Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt, to keep us discovering new books, to keep us talking about books, to keep the reading and writing community together. And that indeed it has. And we are persevering. Let me tell you very quickly, we're going to be hearing about The Violin Conspiracy, as I keep smiling and saying. Let me tell you a tiny bit about its author, Brendan Slocumb. Brendan Slocumb was raised in North Carolina and earned a degree in music education with concentrations in violin and viola at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. For more than 20 years, he has been a public and private school music educator and has performed orchestras throughout Northern Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., as I keep saying, and there is a lot more to Brendan as well. And I want to let him tell us all about that today. So I want to talk about music and racism and family and dreams and debut novels and your own personal story. But for people who have not read The Violin Conspiracy yet, just set it up a little bit for us. Tell us a little bit about that world.
Okay. Violin Conspiracy is a story of a young man named Ray who discovers that his old family fiddle is actually a priceless Stradivarius violin. And this discovery catapults him into superstardom in the world of classical music. But right before the Tchaikovsky competition, which is basically the Olympics of classical music, his instrument is stolen. Will he get it back? Will he find out who took it? Will he compete? Got to read it to find out.
It's so funny because when someone asked me what the book was about, and I said something like that, and they said, "Well, you just told me the whole book." And I said, "Not even a sliver, not even a sliver of what it's all about." It's so interesting how big this book is, how multi-layered it is, how textured it is. It's really a bookended thriller, but in the middle is this sort of coming of age story of a Black high school kid who loves music and his sort of struggle to get into to follow his dreams, basically.
Mhm.
In your brain, which story came first, or did they grow up together?
For this book, they grew up together. A lot of Ray is autobiographical, and I've gotten the question, how much of Ray is in Brendan, and I like to say 92%
Oh,
of Ray is me. And these are stories and events and everything that I've been carrying around, since I can remember, since the age of 9 when I started playing violin. And in 2020, I just felt like it was the right time to share a lot of these stories, and the Violin Conspiracy was born.
I mean, agents and editors always tell writers, if you want to write a hit novel, it has to be a book that only you can write. And The Violin Conspiracy is so perfectly the book that only you, Brendan Slocumb, could have written. Can you talk about that a little bit, how that evolved?
Sure, happy to. Um, I started playing violin, like I said, when I was 9, and just my experiences. I went through a period of time when I was growing up. We didn't have very much money, and for me to even have a rented violin, I mean, it was major. That was like Christmas and birthdays for the next 3 years together, just to be able to get an instrument. I took to it. And my teacher saw that, okay, Brendan is he's excelling at this. He's into it. There were tons of obstacles along the way. Just, not having the money to keep the instrument. I had to take my instrument back to the music store several times. So there were lots of times where I didn't have an actual instrument to play on. And, my instrument was, when I finally did have an instrument that was my own, that I thought it was stolen. That was a crush. That was crushing. I didn't know if I was going to be able to go to college. I had no intention of going to college until one of my teachers, one of my mentors, said, "You need to apply to UNC Greensboro. You need to think about music education." I said, "Okay, I don't know what any of that is, but okay, sure, I'll do it." And I auditioned and I made it, and I had the best. One of the characters in the story is Dr. Janice Stevens, and she's actually modeled after my college violin teacher. And it was so easy to write her because my teacher, I credit her with every single thing that I've done since college. She taught me how to play the violin. She taught me how to teach. She was the most motivating factor I have ever had. And without her, I know I would not be here right now. And
I mean,
so it's an homage to her.
well, it's interesting because I want to rewind a little bit to I want to talk about you're paying it forward, which you do so gorgeously. And you allude to that in the book. And anybody who's read the book will understand every little thing that you just said, how much is woven into your story. But do you remember 9-year-old you? I mean, how did someone say, what instrument would you like to play? Or did they show you an array of instruments? And did you almost pick up the flute? Or how did that happen?
I did pick up the flute in college, but we don't tell anyone I'm a closet flute player. I want to
That's
keep
book
that on ourselves.
two. That's book
That,
two.
that's actually book 3, but
Oh,
yeah, we'll keep it. So, yeah, 9-year-old Brendan, a woman, Susan Ellington, came into my elementary school, and she said, "We have a strings program. If anyone would like to play, we give the lessons for free. You just have to rent an instrument." A couple of my friends were like, "Yeah, okay, we'll do it. You get out of class twice a week." "Oh yeah, I'm definitely down for that. Let's do it." Turns out the day that we were supposed to start, they flaked out and didn't do it. And I was like, "Well, I'm doing it. I've got my violin." So yeah, And it was just, I loved it. I loved everything about it. The very first thing that I learned to play was two strings, plucking two strings. And I just thought that I was Mozart after that. I was like, oh, okay, I can play the violin. This is awesome. And I just loved it. I loved every single thing about it. From that day on, it was just magic.
Well, playing the violin is so difficult. I mean, it's when bad violin playing is just the worst thing that there could possibly ever be. Did you learn how to read music at the same time? How did that work?
I actually, I had a really good general music teacher, Miss Jones. I wish I knew her first name. As a kid, everybody is Miss.
Yeah.
So it's like she actually taught us how to read music. She taught us how to read music, and I said, okay, well, I know how to do this. Is this going to help me with the violin? She said it's the same thing. Oh, great! So I have a slight advantage. I could read, maybe from a C up to a C. That's all I could do. Everything within the staff. And it definitely helped when I was learning to play violin. And it was, it was a challenge just because there's nothing natural about this, nothing at all. There's nothing natural. So it was a lot of fun.
I mean, I have a friend who talked about, and I promise you this as a point, talked about the moment that he was in a car with his dad and they had gone on some long road trip. And the father was looking at a map. That's how long ago it was. I mean, a paper map. And finally, my friend said to his father, what are those things on the map? And the father said, these are where we go. These are the streets. This street is right here on the map. And he remembers this moment when he realized that the map was the streets. Was there a moment when you realized that those notations were the music? And you know what I mean? And did you hear that?
I do. And it was probably around the end of my first year of playing, and everything just clicked. I was like, whoa, if I do this, that's the same as this, and that matches this, and I can do this. It really is like an awakening. And it was a great feeling. I'm like, okay, all of this makes sense. Everything that I've been doing now totally makes sense. This is great. Then, I thought I really knew I was Mozart at that point. It's like, I can do this and I can read music and I can play this and it all comes together. Give me something. I'll play it. Yeah, sure. I can do that. And
Did
it
your
was
teacher
awesome.
did your teachers realize that you were better at music than most people?
I think so. Yeah. They were really good about, being all inclusive with everyone else. It wasn't going to be like, Brendan, you do this, Brendan, you do this. If there was a challenging, we were like playing a piece or something, there was something challenging that had chords, or if we were playing the auto harp, that's how old I am. We're playing the auto harp. She would have me, the teacher would come up and have me demonstrate because she figured, well, okay, you know how to read music, so you can do this. And oh, okay, well, I'm glad you have confidence in me, but yeah, it actually worked out. It's like, okay, yeah, I,
And
I can do this.
when you think about your experience versus Ray, we're talking about the Violin Conspiracy, you all, and we are giving away a copy of the Violin Conspiracy. So leave a comment or a question for Brendan in the comments, and we will pick a winner before the end of the show tonight. So make sure that you do that. When I look over here, I'm looking at your comments, and so many people are here. Janine is here, and Sylvia is here, and Lynn is here. Welcome you all. And you do have questions, and we will hold those
Oh,
briefly until the end of the show. So you were talking about your experiences as a kid learning the violin.
mhm.
And when I think about what Ray had to struggle with, the main character of your book, what Ray had to struggle with when he was a kid, and you said 92% you. Um, he Ray had a loving and amazing, memorable treasure of a grandmother. He had sort of a brute of a mother who was the most destructive person I've ever read about. And teachers who were dismissive,
Yeah.
and a universe that was closing doors to him. How much of you and Ray are the same in that era?
I'm going to start by saying mom in the book is not my mother. My mom was so much more supportive than mom in the book. So let's get that out of the way right now. Um, Let me go back to Grandma Nora. She was actually my grandmother, and when I was writing her, I would always feel like she was right next to me, and I could hear her voice as I was typing. And she was the absolute sweetest woman you've ever met in your life, and I just wanted to pay homage to her because I love her, and I loved her, and all of her children, all of her grandchildren. We all felt the exact same way. I think my uncle said once, and this made it into the book. her voice is so sweet, you could get diabetes just listening to her. And it's like, oh my God,
Well,
I love my grandma.
I can hear that. I can hear that in the novel. And Grandma Nora plays such a pivotal role in Ray's life in the novel. And knowing your connection with your own grandma, what was it like to write about her and to put her on the page? And why was that important to you?
I thought it was really important to have a lot of the messages that Grandma Nora gave, because in Ray's life he was not supported. You know, this is not something that playing the violin was not something that someone who looks like Ray would normally do, and people just didn't get it. And it's so for Ray to have one voice, just that one voice from someone that he loves and cares for so much, to support him and to just acknowledge that what he's doing is important and it's valid and he can do it. And she pushes him, and she, you know, the lesson about staying true to who you are, it all comes from Grandma Nora, and he has her to draw back on when times get tough, and times definitely get tough in the book. And he always thinks back to Grandma Nora. What would she want me to do? What would she want me to do? And can I do it? She gave him the strength that he needed.
She also gave him the violin.
Yes.
And did not know what a treasure it was. And it says right on the back of the book, so this is not giving anything away, that it turns out to be a Stradivarius. And I will let you all read the book to figure out how that happened. But Ray, and we know from the beginning that it is stolen. So again, not giving anything away, you all. But the thing about Ray and the violin is that his connection to his instrument is so physical. Is that what it's like to be an elite musician with your instrument?
That is exactly what it's like. It's your instrument is an extension of you. It really is a part of, not only is it a physical extension, but it is a part of, I like to say it's a part of my soul. If you don't have your instrument and for some reason you have to use something else, it's like it's foreign. Something is wrong. Why am I doing this? I feel like I'm betraying, you know, a part of my own body. It's like, why do I not have mine? This is not part of me, but you have to make it work as best you can. It really is like that. And like with Ray, I had an instrument stolen. And to this day, I mean, it's been like 30 plus years, and I still hold out hope that I will find that violin again. So if anybody sees a 1953 Eugene Lehman violin, it's mine. Please send me a message. It's mine.
And that's why the Lehman
Yeah.
why the Lehman violin in the novel. Let me just read. Don't let me forget about the Lehman, because that was very important. But one of the things that that you talk about in the book, and the physical loss of this instrument. You see Ray, I'm looking for pages here. You see Ray in hotel rooms just longing, just bereft, because this instrument is gone and he thinks he can never play again. And you just have to read this book, The Violin Conspiracy. All right. So he's imagining this violin. He imagined the violin dropped, damaged. He'd been entrusted with this instrument, this glowing talisman that possessed a sound unlike any other. His audiences drew in a collective breath when he played. Now he imagined it smashed under the wheels of a car, the shards of wood poking out like the feathers of a run-over bird. Oh my gosh, Brendan, that's just so heartbreaking.
Yeah, I hope that those images I really hope the images give the reader a glimpse into what it's like to lose something that's so precious to you. I mean, it's a physical object, yes, but for Ray, it meant so much more, because not only was it given to him by his grandmother, but it had so much meaning because of where it came from and what it represented. And when you read the book, you guys will totally see what I'm talking about. It's more than just an instrument. It really is a part of his heritage.
And this book, The Violin Conspiracy, is more than just a thriller about a Stradivarius. But have you ever played a Stradivarius?
I have not, but that is on my list. It's on my bucket list. It's on my bucket list. Writing a book, check. Playing a Strad, oh, it's coming. I know I can make it happen.
And how would that happen? Are there available violins?
Not really for, just like laymen like me to come out and say, hey, I want to play a Strad. No, you'd have to go through, there's just a ton of paperwork and vetting that you'd have to go through just to be able to hold one. So I'm hoping Joshua Bell, Stock Perlman, if you guys are around, I'm in Dallas right now. I'll be back in DC very soon. If you guys are around, I'd love to play your instrument.
I think they watch Crime Time, actually, Brendan. I think I've seen them here from time to time. So maybe, or maybe some of the people in our audience, maybe
Remember this face.
our audience know them, or, some degree of separation. Maybe we'll get that for you. That'd be great. That would be great. Do
Winner.
they really sound different?
Oh yeah, it's like night and day. I like to use the comparison. If you're learning to drive on, let's say, a Volkswagen, nothing wrong with a Volkswagen, it's fine. Learning to drive on a Volkswagen versus learning to drive on a BMW, it is night and day. Anything that you play in a Strat is going to sound fantastic. Anything.
And it's one of the things you were talking about, the layman that was the stolen, and I know you'll get that back too. I didn't really understand before I read this book how different a violin could sound, and how really different people playing the same piece could sound. And I sort of went to my phone and started looking up different people playing the same pieces on different violins, just to see, just to hear if I could hear it. What an education for all of us reading this book.
It's I like to think this is a story for non-musicians as much as it is for musicians. A lot of the terminology that I was putting in, I would just write and just like I'm talking to another professional musician, and I would have someone read it who was a non-musician. What is this? I don't know. This may as well be a foreign language. Okay, I need to tone it down. I need to write this for non-musicians. And I hope that some of the imagery that I came up with, I hope that I hope it makes the point.
Well, one of the really astonishing things about this book, one of the many astonishing things about the Violin Conspiracy, is how you write about music. I mean, as an author, it is very difficult to describe a musical piece without, it's either lilting or scherzo, or you might have some words, but you have created this way, and I think I marked one here. You have created this way of describing it almost like a soundtrack of a movie, and that you can picture the music. You can picture the music in your mind. I'm going to read a tiny bit, you all. Final page of the score. Final page. He decided to increase the tempo even more. The surf crept higher past the beach, onto the dunes, roaring like a tsunami toward houses sleeping under the moon, unaware of what was pounding toward them. The wave built on itself, gathered like a giant feral cat about to pounce, and then the final chord. He drew it out as long as possible. The water subsided. The village was safe. I mean, I started applauding. When I read that, because you can hear it. And some of the pieces I am familiar with, and the Mendelssohn and Rossi Madre, and I thought, as I was reading it, I thought, oh, I'm not hearing this. I'm just reading it. Where did that come from, Brendan? Where did Ray's brain, just writing music, words, come from?
I like to think that that's from my own experiences in playing. When I remember the first time I ever played Rosa Major. I was in 7th grade, and I was, whoa, this is all of those images, everything. And I drew back on it, and I just went from, what was it like for me? It was it was a transformative experience. And I wanted to show people what, like, okay, if you're at the beach and you're the surf is coming in, and that's the closest thing that I could think of to having someone experience the same thing that I did without them playing. Not only with Rosa Major, but like with the Mendelssohn Concerto. I've heard it a million times. I played it. My teacher played it, and when I heard her play it, it just, I mean, everything that I'd heard before was just, it didn't even come close. And so I really wanted to get people to see how passionate about music Ray is. And if you could just get a glimpse into what's going on in his head as he's playing, I like to think that we're all on the journey together.
Well, one of the things that happened to me personally in reading The Violin Conspiracy, I have listened to classical music my whole life and all that, but when I instantly started playing it after and as I was reading The Violin Conspiracy. And what happened when I listened to the pieces that Ray plays, I began to imagine Ray playing them. I was seeing Ray playing them. And it made every piece so personal
Hmm.
because I thought, oh, I practiced that with him. Oh, yeah, I know that part. Oh, here comes the hard part. Oh, is he going to make it? And I was rooting for him through the music and seeing and being in the music through him. And I thank you for that. People must have talked to you about that, how hearing music changed after reading your book.
I have actually gotten that comment a lot, and I'm really, really happy that it I'm happy that's the experience that people got. As a musician, sometimes we take for granted that this is the way that it is. It's like this for me all the time. And to be able to share that with people who don't play an instrument, who like music, but classical music is not really your thing or whatever, but to give someone that experience, the same thing that I experienced, I know what it does for me and I know how it makes me feel. And to be able to share that, I mean, it's been incredible. And I've actually heard that a lot. And people say, I'd read this and I would immediately go and listen to the song and, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I can't believe he's doing this. And it just gets them more and more excited.
Exactly.
It's exciting for me.
As the notes go higher and higher and higher, and you're
Oh,
like, oh,
yeah.
can you make it? Can you make it? Can you make it? And it's just so wonderful. And then you just cheer. So we're all very grateful for that. You all are going to have a lot to listen to as you are reading the Violin Conspiracy. And when you have finished the Violin Conspiracy, I just now walk around with my phone with the Rosie Major playing all the time, thanks to you.
Beautiful. Isn't it beautiful? Oh, I love that.
Oh yeah, it just makes me cry.
Mhm.
Makes me cry. One of the things that we don't want to not talk about in this book is the underrepresentation of people of color in the classical music industry. And I know you don't want to be a statistic, and you say that in your author's note, but it is so important for us to know about that. Talk a little bit about that.
As I was doing research, I wanted to make sure that numbers were accurate. I actually had the number wrong. I thought it was like 2.5% of classical musicians were Black. It actually ends up being 1.8% of professional classical musicians are Black. And that number I mean, it hit me like a brick. I'm like, why is that? Why are we so underrepresented? Is it like because we can't do it? It's not because we're incapable. I think it all boils down to opportunity and just people knowing about this opportunity and exposure. If we start kids, early in school, you don't take them to a symphony concert once. Let's take them every month. Let's go and get instruments in their hands. Let's play this music in the hall. Let's play this music in the morning when they're walking in. Let's play this music as they're leaving. Just the exposure to it could open doors for so many people, and it would definitely increase that number in a relatively short amount of time.
You face that so head on in this novel, internally and externally, with what Ray says to people and how Ray behaves and what he realizes. There's one. I'm going to read one more thing. You all, I know this is going to go on too long, but one more thing. He says. There are moments in life when the clouds lift and the curtain of rain blows back, and suddenly the world stands before you, stark and vast, and you teeter on the edge of an enormous precipice of knowledge, of understanding, with every fiber of your soul, every hair on your head. And this was one such moment when he faces something. And that sounds like, when you were talking about coming from your soul, that sounds like coming from your soul.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there are scenes that you just have to just buckle up. I would say that it's fair to say just to buckle up, because some of it is really difficult to read. And if it's difficult to read, imagine how difficult it is for musicians of color, people that look like me, to actually have to face those situations. And they do happen, and they did happen. And, it happens more often than we like to admit. And that's one reason that I fought really hard to get sections like that put into the story. I had editors that were just like, no, this is too much. Things like this don't happen. And yes, they do. And I'm telling you, the time is right for these stories to get out and for people to realize, wow, maybe I should have a different perspective on someone who looks like Brendan, what it is that they have to go through. And, I'll take a look a little differently.
And it is interesting too, because like a musical piece, this story is constructed to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger And it is hard to read in a good way, you all. Thought-provokingly hard, not difficult. Don't skip it. You won't want to skip it. You'll be absolutely riveted to it. And then as we flow toward the end and the big finish, the big emotional finish, it is really extraordinary. What was it like to write the emotional end, not the thriller end, but the emotional end?
It was tough. It was actually quite draining. There were lots of moments that were draining for me to write. I would write and I'd have to sit back and, whew, okay, calm down, take it easy. You got through it. It's okay. And there were things that I chose to actually tone down some. I want to say chapter 33, I actually toned that down. Just because, I mean, emotionally, it takes you on a ride and it takes a lot out of you, and in a good way, I will honestly say, because it definitely is thought provoking and it makes you go, wow, hmm, things are not all rosy, and it's not the way that my perception of it is definitely different from his. And if he has this perception, it's not necessarily wrong, it's just different. It's nice to actually experience a different perspective from someone, an average person. Their perspective is different than mine, and I appreciate people acknowledging that. They're saying, wow, I never thought about it that way. I never really thought about what you had to go through.
Yeah, and that one of the reasons that this book is so important in every way. Did you always want to be? Well, let me tell you one more thing, and that is about elite musicians. I was reading an article about how the Boston Symphony is looking for a concertmaster, a new concertmaster, and someone is asking if you'll be playing in New England. Maybe you could come to New England and audition to be the concertmaster of the BSO. Just nothing. Um, but the woman who was writing this article was saying that to be an elite musician is harder than being a multi-million dollar paid athlete, because you can never make a mistake. Somebody who bats 325 or whatever, isn't that good? I mean, that's good.
That's good.
So, but you as a professional musician are not ever supposed to make a mistake.
This is true, and it's what it's weird, because I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day, and it's like, we as professional musicians, we should be being paid, $500,000 a year, because, like you said, we can't make a mistake. And if you do, not only is it your reputation, but it's the reputation of the group that you play with and everyone who's in that group. So the stakes are really, really high, and you practice and you practice and you practice, and you go to school for years and years, and you practice for countless hours. And it all comes down to that one piece that you play. All it takes is a one note, one finger slip, one lapse in concentration. You're done. That's your career. Now you've got the reputation. That guy's a flake, don't hire him. He'll mess it up, don't do that. It really is. It's very tough. It's very, very tough and very stressful. And we should be paid more, musicians.
Exactly so. Exactly so. I mean, and you did take us there so gorgeously throughout this book. It's a thriller, and I don't want to talk about the ending of the thriller, but I do want to tell you that I'm just near the end. I was just turning the pages as fast as possible, and just like you had to slow down on chapter 33, I'm like, just read this more slowly. It'll still be here. Had you always wanted to write? How do you know so much about the structure of a thriller? How did you know to put the book in a book? If I say, how did you write this? I mean, that's such a silly question, but how? I mean, you're a debut novelist.
I don't think it's silly at all. I've actually written a few things before, but I mean, 10, 15 years ago, I submitted my very first manuscript, and it was awful. The story was great, but it was terrible. I look at it now and I'm embarrassed. But I learned. I listened and I learned, and I took a lot of critiques and criticism. I took it all. And being a musician and having the discipline to sit down and practice, I was given some really good advice. Write what you know and write honestly. I know music. Okay. My first manuscript was science fiction. I love science fiction, but it's not my forte music thing. It's not my specialty. So I was given the advice, write about music, because that's what you know, and then you can incorporate these other things. And my structures, I have a fantastic agent who was like, part one, part two, part three. What are you going to do? I'll do this. What are you going to do? Do this. What are you going to do? Do this. All right, great. What do you think about this? I don't like that. We would have a lot of arguments. We would argue a lot. Thanks for
Oh,
that music joke. We would argue a lot, and sometimes I would win, sometimes I wouldn't, but I would always listen to the advice, and I got some really good advice. I have a fantastic team.
well, it's interesting because you wouldn't have been able to be a gorgeous violinist on day one. And
No.
so there's no reason to think that you would be perfection as a novelist, which this is pretty close to perfect, I have to
You
say.
know what? I'm justified. Totally. Thank you. All right. It paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I do think it is musically structured, isn't it? That it has the movements and then it
Hmm.
has the big climax and then the emotional coda at the end, and it takes us
Absolutely.
along the waves of this story. Um, do you watch thrillers? Do you like them?
Absolutely. Oh my God. Yes. 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 I'm a big mystery buff. I love Agatha Christie and I love Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Um, Death on the Nile was the first mystery that I read cover to cover, and I was mad because I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, I was 13 at the time, and Hound of the Baskervilles is one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes stories. And to this day, if whenever I'm in Europe, I don't, no, it's like, no, 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 no. Dogs, nope, 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 not going out
That's
there. No, no,
hilarious.
no.
That's
It's like a shoe. Yeah, I'm not doing it. No.
Well,
If you've read Hound of the Baskervilles,
well, let me say also that so interestingly, when I was about that age, 12 or 13, I read Murder on the Orient Express.
um,
And I thought, oh my golly, how did she do that? And
yeah,
that's the book that made me want to write mysteries
Mm.
because the clues were all there.
yeah.
And the answer, the solution was, inevitable, but so surprising.
Hmm.
And that's what you sort of do in the Violin Conspiracy. Do you hope people did you know the end when you started?
I knew the end about three-quarters of the way through writing it. I was like, how am I going to do this? And it's so funny you ask that. Friends of mine who have read the book, uh, they have come up with some of the most. Where did that come from? I never thought about that. It had to be this guy because of this. Oh, it had to be her because of this. Oh, it was these people because of. Oh, I didn't even thought about that. That is a really good angle I could have taken, because they've given me so much stuff to go from. And my next couple of books, my next book is coming out this time next year, and I'm going to say that it's kind of a thriller as well. I'm not going to talk about theft. I won't talk about anything. And then I'm planning a whole series of just everything else that I'm writing after that. I'm really, really, really excited to write. In this next book, it's a gorgeous, beautiful story, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, we are really excited to read it. And I'm going to my mailbox right now to see whether there's a copy of it.
It's actually being edited right now. I turned in the manuscript 2 weeks ago. So yeah.
Wonderful. I cannot wait to read it. I have so many more questions for you, but I know that the audience has questions pouring in. Janine just says, yay, when she hears about your new book. So Sylvia is asking, can you tell me one lesson or comment from any of your life's music instructors that you find yourself passing on to your students? What a brilliant question, Sylvia.
That is a fantastic question. I always try to, and my students know this, I am brutally honest with them. I always, if they play something well, I'm cheering to everybody knows it. I'm shouting out just praises, everything. But if they do something poorly, I let them know. They can't get any better if I don't tell them what it is that they need to improve upon. And it's not me being in the beginning, before they really know me, they think, you're so mean. It's like, no, I'm not being mean. I'm being honest. There is a difference between being mean to you. Would you rather me tell you that it was good and it really wasn't? No, I wouldn't do that to you. I want you to get better. So I'm just going to tell you, if it was good, it was great. If it was bad, it wasn't so great.
I dedicated my first novel to my English teacher, my high school English teacher, actually. And what I learned from him was he had the same theory, absolutely. And he had this rubber stamp that said GUG, G-U-G, just meant like, this is horrible. And he would just stamp GUG on my papers. And then, I just lived in fear of that GUG stamp. But then I would go and say, well, tell me about this. And he would say, here's why I said GUG. And I learned I learned from that. And now sitting right here at this desk writing my manuscripts now, I think that's a Gug moment. That's a Gug moment. So I am grateful to Mr. Thornburg for that, and we'll never forget that. So good for you. Does your teacher know, says Gail, about her being in the book?
Absolutely. I sent her a copy of the manuscript before I turned it in. I wanted her to read through it just to make sure that everything was, just all the music stuff. Yeah, okay. Music that doesn't hurt to double check. And when she read it, I mentioned her. Her name is Rochelle Vetter Huang, and I use Rochelle Vetter as one of the experts that Ray goes to for some lessons. And every event that I put in, she knew because she was a part of it, and she was in tears. And I just can't believe that you remember that. And that's just so nice of you I was like, you taught me everything I know. This is the least that I could do for you. So, I mean, I love her. I adore her. I love her. I love her family. She's the reason that I'm here right now.
Oh, that's lovely. That is so great. Marcy is saying, is there a Spotify or Apple playlist with all the music from the book?
There actually is, Marcy. On my website, brendanslocumb.com, there is a Spotify playlist of not only all of the music that Ray plays, but the music that he loves and he, listens to. And it's a lot of classical music. It's a little bit of contemporary, and there's some hip hop because Ray's kind of a hip hop head.
That's great. And you're in a different band as well. You're in another kind of band.
I am actually in a rock band called Geppetto's Wood. And I love it because the band is made up of my former students who are all like adults now. And, they're in their 30s, and I'm looking at them like, you're still 15, right? No, you're not 15 anymore. Why do you have that beer? Are you Oh, okay. Because you're 30.
That's great. All right. That's great. That's so fun.
It's fun.
That's great. Who else has a question? Two more questions? One more question? Anything? Which do you enjoy more, writing or playing?
That is a loaded question. Wow. I enjoy them both equally. I like to think that I am a better. If I say the wrong thing,
no, just own it. Own all of it.
I'm a musician first. I'm a violinist first, and that's what I do. That's why I'm here.
If somebody has never listened to classical music, can you tell them something that would be engaging and accessible?
I would say going into classical music, if you're not really a huge fan, just go into it with an open mind. If you like serene things, if you like really calm things, I would say listen to maybe Brahms or Schubert. And if you're really into exciting, fast-paced stuff, I would listen to Vivaldi or maybe Haydn.
And I bet they would be surprised at how familiar some of those pieces are. And they'll think, oh, I know this. I know this. Yeah. It's not that I don't know.
I heard it on that commercial. Oh, wasn't that at a wedding that I went to? Yeah, you'll totally know this. No, you'll know the piece.
The Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Oh yeah. Barbara Seville. Yes.
But still, I mean, it's Music Prescriptions says A Mighty Blaze. I know you have a concert tonight. I know you have a book signing tonight. So I do want to keep you longer, but I won't do it. I want to say just standing ovation, hooray, bravo, fabulous. I loved this. Everybody loves this. And we are so thrilled that you took the time to be with us today, Brendan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The pleasure has been mine. It has just been, this is thrilling. This is an absolute thrill. And I want to thank you so much.
We loved having you. And don't you all move, because let me just tell you that really quickly on Crime Time next Tuesday at 4:00, we will be talking to Stephanie Robel about her book, This Might Hurt. And you can see from the cover that this is a very edgy, terrifying, marvelous thriller. This might hurt. But you go in about 30 seconds. We're going to pick a winner of the Violin Conspiracy, and that is Shannon Hansen, a wonderful fan of A Mighty Blaze. Shannon Hansen, my friend Shanson, has won the Violin Conspiracy. Congratulations. Thank you so much, Brendan. Again, as for you, stay safe and keep reading, and we will see you next Tuesday.